Hello, welcome to the next adventures. So, wanted a little mini skid steer for a little bit. Finally got one at auction, got a decent price on it, cheaper than I could find it on Marketplace. And went later in the day after everybody spent all their money, all the resellers. So, got a pretty good deal, right around $3 for this guy. So this is a Future FT36C. It's just, you know, the next brand of mini skid steer that China makes and people import. It tells you right there, clear as day, made in China. So if you have looked into these at all, there's quite a few Facebook pages, a lot of good information on there. So the first things they tell you to do is grease all the pins, make sure the important hardware is tight, and change the oil. So my local farm fleet store is Tractor Supply. So I went on and got 10W30 for the oil, for the engine, and the hydraulic oil. They tell you AW46. AW just stands for anti-wear. 46 is the oil weight, so ISO 46 premium anti-wear. Same stuff, about $10 a gallon. For the AW46 was around $20–25 a gallon. So cheap oil, cheap machine, all good there. Now the oil reservoir on this one, and like I said, I'm pretty sure they're pretty much all the same. Engine in the back, 2 gear pumps. This one comes with the cooler and the fan. Hydraulic reservoir is right there, and I'll show you in a minute. Underneath it is the drain pan, or drain plug, sorry. So what I did here, hi puppy, is I put some jack stands underneath the front, used the bucket to lift the front of the machine up. That way to give me a little more space. I got a pretty big oil catch pan here. I don't know how big exactly, but we'll find out. Don't want to overflow it though. So I'll set you guys up and we'll get the hydraulic oil draining. Got the drain pan under there pretty easy. This one, it's a 19. No idea if that's the same for all these. That's what I figured out mine was. Drain plug was not very tight. There should be. Under here is the drain plug. Like I said, mine wasn't on there too tight. Pretty much just finger tight. I already drained a bucket of this already. I'll just see. Hopefully the rest of this fits in here. It is pretty clean. It's not like it's dirty. There was some air in it. A bunch of little bubbles. I mean, it's oil. I don't know what grade it is, but cheap insurance. Like I said, that bucket cost me $50. Change it out and not have issues in the future. Here's the front of the machine, and here's where your oil is gonna go back into your hydraulic reservoir. Nice little breather cap. Nothing special, nothing fancy. It's from China. And then this is your sight glass. So if you remember in the beginning, I have my machine jacked up in the front here with some jack stands under it. That is two things here. One, clearance, but two, it basically makes a low spot in my reservoir, and the drain was at the back of it. So I took a mental note before I drained it of where my hydraulic fill level was. Now this is with all the cylinders collapsed, boom down, bucket curled back, so no exposed rods. And yes, this won't get all the oil out, but I'll drain the reservoir, I'll run it for a couple hours, and then I'll do it again. So oil's cheap enough. So basically, I'm gonna fill this up to just about the top of the temperature gauge, and I'll try to show you that a little bit later. Oh yeah, just as I expected. Leave it. oil spillage. That's alright, it's just rust preventative. Alright, finally found some success. So I had to make a trip to the hardware store. And I was looking through their section of pumps, and their $100 pump for this, $200 pump for that. Next to the $6 siphon pump, which I did not think would work. But then quick search on their webpage for just pump, I was able to find this RV antifreeze pump. So technically this is to pump antifreeze into your RV for the wintertime, but it is working great. I can control how quickly the fluid goes into the reservoir, because the issue is there's a screen in there and it gets airlocked and then it starts bubbling out and then it just makes a mess. So while the funnel was working, it was still, I couldn't control the fluid flow well enough and it just made a mess. So yep, that worked out pretty good. Nice little rest for the bucket. The little hand pump going into the reservoir here was definitely the trick. Should have started that from the beginning. So with that, just gotta reinstall our cap. And hopefully you can see the oil level there. It's up on the gauge, but like I said, the machine's inclined back, so yeah, that's it for the hydraulic oil. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to focus on here is tensioning the tracks. Now, they are, in my opinion, pretty darn loose. Just overall, not real tight. So, pretty simple. On this one, it was 14mm bolts. Boom, boom, impact zipped them right off. And then in there is a tensioning rod and a jam nut. So I'm going to read the manual real quick, but I'm pretty sure we'll loosen the jam nut and just use that piece all thread to push the front idler forward. So let me look at the manual real quick and we'll get going. Alright, this one was a bit of a pain because I don't have the right tool. So where'd my light go? So the jam nut there is bigger than a 24. It's probably something closer to a 30. Now, the only thing that I had that would fit on it is a 1 1/4 crow's foot. So, and that was miserable because of the size constraints and trying to get a ratchet in here. Regardless of the extensions and everything else, it kind of works, but it's still just not the perfect tool. But yeah, so highly recommend a wrench for this. I think if you had a wrench, it'd be a lot easier. But once you get that jam nut loosened up, you just use this, in case was a 16, and tighten that thread in. And as I was tightening it in, I could see the slop coming out of the tracks, and now they're nice and tight. So all that's left to do is rotate this around, tighten it back up. There you go. So I'm gonna go do that on the other side. Then the tracks will be done. Next up after that is gonna be the engine oil, and that's gonna be tomorrow. So be a night's rest for me, a couple seconds for you. See you soon. Alright, so I got the cover pulled off here. It was pretty simple. I don't know, 4 bolts down that side, 4 bolts down that side. They're M8s, 13mm heads, no big deal. So my plan here is the drain is right there. Does not have a nice hose drain like some of the other machines has. So it's gonna make quite a bit of mess, but what I think I'm gonna do is put a funnel and try to capture it as much as I can and route that funnel down through the hole in the frame. I think it's there for servicing. They tried, not, I don't know, the old college try, so. But yeah, I'll use a funnel to try to get as much of the oil as I can from the engine down into my drain pan. Well, you won't be able to see, but my attempt to capture everything has definitely gone awry. Yeah, it doesn't work too well when the drain is level with the surface it's on. So making a mess, but the drain pan is large enough to catch it all, luckily. So I'm gonna see if I can't go to the hardware store, figure out some type of fitting or an extension to get this out, so that my idea in the future would work a little better. But yeah, 12mm drain plug, making a mess. It's what to expect. Man, Paul B's pulls through again. Gets exactly what I need. So, new tube of grease since I opened up my second to last one. And then I was looking for a drain plug extension. I've seen them on like some of the older garden tractors where they, you know, can extend out past the ledge, and they have this guy here. They call it a drain zit. drainzit.com. I'll put the link in the description below. 12mm port here. That's what this guy, this 420cc, no named. I think they're at the Rhoda engine, maybe. Not really sure, but just what you need for these. If you're going to keep it long term, you can extend it out. I'm not going to send it down through the hole, but I'll leave it up, looped up in the engine bay there, protect it from the mud and everything else. But it's going to make it a lot easier doing these oil changes in the future, a lot less mess, so cannot complain. 25 bucks, I think it's well worth it. Okay, so there you have it. I have that drain zit line installed. Goes off the side of the block there, and then comes down and has a separate plug right there. I'm just going to leave it looped like that. I don't think it's really going to cause any issues. Need to make sure it's not leaking, so I'll do that. I just started putting oil in here, but as you can see, that draining it just made a mess everywhere. I mean, it's hard to show you all the spots just because there's so many, but basically this top of this thing is coated with oil, and it drained down. The top of this block is all covered with oil. Went down the sides over there. It's all up over there. Got a mess under here because didn't have the pan far enough under, and then it started draining out of another hole a little bit farther back. So just an overall mess. Literally the worst thing I've ever quote unquote serviced. But, and then for the oil, that's another fun game. So that's your, looks like I'm full. But yeah, so your oil fill is right there, and over there there's a secondary one. But you know, it's hard to get a funnel in there. Then if you did get a funnel in there, you can't really pour anything into the funnel. Maybe a quart, but I bought a 2-gallon container, so it's a little antifreeze, RV antifreeze pump saved the day again. I was able just to pump it up over and into the crankcase there. Worked pretty well. I am full though. Probably put a little too much oil in it. Guess the extra pump or two did her in, so luckily I have an easy way to drain it now. So let me get this buttoned up and I'll get back to you guys. Alright, so I got the manual here for the slip loader YL350. Not what this machine actually is. It's a Future FT36C, but regardless, we all know they're all the same. But in here they do have the grease points. So they're claiming there is 6 of them, and so far that's all I could find. So just a real quick overview of those 6. It's really just a pin. So we have pin here, up there, and there on both sides, left hand and right hand side of the machine. And then in the front, a little simpler, we have left bucket pin, right bucket pin. Then we have our tilt cylinder, bore pin, tilt cylinder rod pin. So in total, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11 grease zerks. So not too bad. There's 10 grease points. I don't know how I got 11, but there's 10. When you buy these, you're gonna see, I just greased this, but you'll already see that there's grease in there. And you know, they definitely greased it before it left the Chinese factory. Now, when I bought this one, it was at an auction, like every other auction. Most likely it sits outside, it gets rained on. The auction I bought it from does equipment auctions once a month. So the assumption is for at least 1 month, this sat out in the rain, and it's February, we had some cold days, so definitely some water got in there. And as I was greasing them, you could hear some of the water in the air bubbles coming out. So regardless of whether you use it or not, it's always a good idea to grease this thing first. So yeah, one other thing a lot of people say on these is for the hydraulic cooler fan here. A lot of people flip the fan. It's pretty simple, or just, you know, reversing the plugs. But on this one, the Future, the fan is going the right way. So a lot of the ones, what the fan typically does is it pulls air from the outside through the radiator, cooler, whatever you want to call it, and into the engine compartment where it's already pretty hot. So you're pulling hot air from your hot oil, blowing it onto the engine, which is also pulling cold air in from the outside. So it gets really, really hot in there, and then you have issues with your gas boiling. On this one, just turn the fan on because it's just a switch. And what I found is the fan is blowing air through this cooler, so it's pulling air from inside there, hot, cold, right or wrong. There's a bunch of vents on the side, and it's blowing it out. So to me, that's a lot better approach. You try to get air out of that engine compartment that's already going to be hot. You know, as long as you have air going over the coolers, you know, thermodynamics, air to boil, blah, 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 you should still have a cooling effect. The only thing I did notice is there is a little bit of wear here from this pad. It's just it's a soft rubber. I don't think it's anything serious. It's really just the paint coming off. But yeah, glad I don't have to do that. It's already working the way it should. If yours does not do that and it's pulling air from the outside into the engine compartment, you'll have to do a little bit of research on reversing the direction of the fan. So in my opinion, looking at this one, the way the blades are, if you can kind of, it's hard to see the shape of them, but whether the fan spins this way or the fan spins that way, in my opinion, these blades are bi-directional. So I don't think there's anything to worry if we had to flip this, but we don't. What I'm not sure about is how all the controls work here, because we do have a temperature sensor. I think we also have one down there, but I don't know if the fan is automatic or if it's up to the operator to turn it on. So it does have a temp gauge. Running it outside for a little bit, got up to 30 degrees Celsius, I'm pretty sure. So not too concerned though. So that's good news. So yeah, overall not too bad to go through this the first time we buy it. Make sure it's ready for the year. So, you know, we'll just a quick recap. It's engine oil, hydraulic oil, tensioning both tracks, checking for any loose hardware. I found none on this, didn't even bother to film that. Checking your fan, make sure your fan goes the right way, and then greasing everything. So my machine seemed to be pretty good. Got all the fluids changed, tracks tensioned. Got to buy a wrench to make it a lot easier. Some tools I definitely would recommend for this is going to be a little hydraulic pump over here. You know, you can't even see that. So very simple little handheld pump. It's going to make your lives a lot easier when you're trying to put oil back in it for a hydraulic reservoir and the engine oil. So other than that, the only other thing I definitely would recommend doing is that remote drain line off the engine. It's got to make a mess no matter what. I went through like a roll of towels, but after this first little service, if you put that drain line on, you should be in great shape. If you start with the pump right away, you'll have a lot less mess for the hydraulic reservoir refilling, and definitely are going to need a larger, there it is, going to need a larger drain pan, probably in the 2.5 to 3 gallon range. So definitely want to make sure it fits under there. I jacked mine up, put it on jack stands. You can use the machine to lift it off the ground. It's pretty simple, just curl in the bucket. So definitely recommend it. So if you're interested in more videos on this guy, stick around. Once the weather warms up and my yard is in a mud hole, we'll get going with it, use it for some projects. And then in the meantime, I'll be getting back to the truck. So got the frame all painted with the primer, got to do the top coat, AG 111, and then it's reassembly. So it should be in pretty good shape. And yeah, please like, subscribe. Please comment below on anything you think I did wrong, things I could do better. Links for that stuff I showed you is going to be down below as well. So thanks, and I'll see you next time. What do you think, puppy? Do you like this new skid steer? Huh? What do you think? Oh, I think she likes it. I think she likes it. She's not afraid of it, at least.